Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 10th, and it's time for Top Voice Tuesday. I'm excited to have with me Nikki Estes, who is a wonderful, wonderful human being and now dear friend that you'll get to know here soon, CEO of Market Me More, a top voice along with me. And so we're going to jump into this conversation about community today and this idea about big impacts through little movements. And I just love the distinction between those two things. And Nikki is an expert at that. As always, if you want to see past episodes and later on today, this episode will be on my YouTube channel, Michael J. Lopez 9. Please go there and subscribe so you can watch. We're up to 20 or so, 25, I think, episodes now. It's been a great journey. I get a week off in a couple weeks here for 4th of July week, so I'm excited for that. And we have a newsletter that comes out every Friday that's based on this episode and a few other insights from my book, Change, which you can see right behind me. Always want to plug that. And so please go to my website, michaeljlopez.coach, and sign up for that. So without further ado, Nikki, we start the show every week with a question, which is first, tell us who you are and what you do. And more importantly, how did you get to the top of the Top Voice Mountain?
I like the top of the Top Voice Mountain. Well, I'm Nikki Estes. I'm a wife of one, but a mom of five, and building community has been my strength. Because of so many children, been involved in all kinds of activities, and I felt that we were more successful in fundraising, in building teams, and whatever it was when we built a community around it. And so as we built business, it was the same. So I feel like people really grow when they have that support. And I want to create that space in any business that I'm a part of. So with Market Me More, we've created two sister companies. And so Michael's a part of Top Voices Unite. And that's where a bunch of LinkedIn top voices with that cool blue badge can collaborate on ideas like this podcast and others that we have. And we have the Emerging Voices Unite, which is the sister company of those that didn't get the blue badge, but their voices are valid. And so I'd like to be able to open that door for them, amplify their voices, and talk about things like sustainability, technology, and the future of work. So that's my jam. The Top Voices Mountain. I'm still climbing. So I'm still learning. And that's why we do these kinds of things, right? So that we learn more about other people so that we can continue to help each other grow up to get to the top of that mountain. Maybe there's a party up there. Is that what we're going towards?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Okay.
We're just going to keep going. I think there's that old analogy that when you get to the top of the mountain, what you see is another summit ahead of you that you need to climb. So I think we are all on that journey together. Before we dive into the topic, what I love about how you and I met, I'd love for you to tell this story really because of what you're doing on behalf of the Top Voice community. We all got the blue badge and then kind of nothing happened. It was just quiet. So how did you get the inspiration to take this idea of community and bring it to this group and talk to us about how you've started your own journey in bringing this community together?
Sure. I appreciate that question because I think that some of the top voices don't know that we do this. When we had a fintech, ICG Pay, and at the time I didn't know what to do with this either. I didn't have any kind of plan, like you, right? When you started this, there's not really a plan, but you've got this thing, and there's this feeling of what do I do with it? Because to much is given, much is expected, and it felt like if a very, very small percentage of LinkedIn gets this badge, what do they expect out of us? And in that meeting that they had, there wasn't any expectations, just post, continue to provide good content. And so I started to read about all the people that were in the meeting. We were giving each other our email addresses and LinkedIn addresses, and there was some WhatsApp groups created and LinkedIn groups created. And I found that there were people that wanted to be a part of something. They just didn't know what that was. So I read through their notes. Each one of them had about a 50-word bio. And so I started to pair them together. And I would just message them. And I would say, hey, let's be linkies. And let's see what we can do with this. Maybe we could do a podcast or a live stream, or let's write an article together. And then it evolved when we sold our company. I started a company, Top Voices Unite. It was the first. And I said, let me reshare your post. And so I just started to create a newsletter to talk about whatever it is that they were talking about so that I could give them one more place to amplify what they were saying because I believed in them. I believed that their voice mattered. Really, that was it. So, but you and I, though, that That was a blind DM that I sent to you,
It
right? Because
was.
I
It
started
was.
hunting for top voices. Do you remember that?
I do. I do. Yeah. I was, and I remember thinking, who is this person? And then I saw you're also a top voice, but you're running a community. And how does this all work? And I think it's such a great metaphor for this idea that, we often get recognition because of our individual accomplishments. In this case, somebody reached out and said, "Hey, we think you're doing great stuff on the platform. Here you go." But it's really the amplification effect of this broader community. And when I started this podcast, I called it a series first, and then somebody reminded me, you've started a podcast. It just happens to be live every week. Is I was meeting people like you as well. And I was just doing this chat individually. Christopher was on last week. He just put a note in the chat. Please do let us know where you're dialing in from. And Christopher and I chatted, and I said, maybe I had 5 or 6 of these conversations. And I finally said, why are we doing this in a vacuum? There's so much interesting discussion happening here between us. Why don't we just do it in front of other people? And Top Voice Tuesday was born, and you just shared your story about Top Voices Unite. So let's dive into the topic, given that we've now shared this little very personal journey. Obviously, everyone's trying to get followers and go viral. But part of what you're saying is that it's not about having 100,000 people knowing who you are. You just need 10 or 5 or the right one. I'm going to use a quick analogy. My son is in the middle of football recruiting season. And one of the things we talk about getting a scholarship, right? You don't need everyone to like you. You just need one. I think that's the same idea. So unpack what that means. Unpack what this idea of micro influence, macro impact really means.
Sure. Like your son's experience is that, if he got everyone to give him that scholarship, he'd have a whole bunch of leftover, which might be nice for him. I don't know what he'd like to buy with it, but they may take away it because they say there's more people that could take advantage of the resources. So if he's gonna only need $100,000 worth of scholarship, but he gets 300, well, 200 could go to someone else. And so if you have that close 10 people that you really you both support each other, you're all invested in one another's growth, that's awesome. If you had 100, it's just too many. My team, they brought to me one time a list, and there was 172 top voices on it. And I don't think that I could do each one of them justice to be able to help them to match make with other industry leaders, even if they're in different fields. Maybe they're marketing or accounting or law. Like, I don't think I would do as good of a job with the live streams because you can only do one of them on my show a week, one of them on your show a week, one of them on Denise's show. Like there's just not enough space there. And so I think that if you were to find those 10 that really you jive with, you can collaborate with, you can make a business with, I think that'd be more successful. 100 is possible, but the project management is going to take more than you still to be able to manage all of those people. How many episodes are you up to now?
20 something, 25, 24, somewhere in there.
That's a lot to juggle, but you're building a relationship 1 week at a time. And I think that's valuable. Once you get to like 1,000, then those check-ins afterwards are a little more difficult, right? I mean, and I just used the right. But they're a little challenging to keep up with everybody because the idea of amplifying is to make them feel special, that they're heard, that that they matter. But at some point, they won't feel mattered because did you forget about me? It's been 2 years, Nikki. I haven't heard from you. I was like, you still matter. I just have made 10 other people feel special. I hope that helps. What do you think?
It does, and there's a tension here that I think is really interesting to talk about because we have a couple WhatsApp groups that other people don't see that we're a part of where we talk about this community and how we're engaging, sharing content, supporting each other. It's a great ecosystem for all of that. But we have, I think, the average person, we're all average people. Everyone is trying to be encouraged to go bigger, do more, go viral, hit how many impressions can you get? And yet what you're saying is that focus and attention and understanding who you're interacting with is actually more important. How do we balance this? Because I think you see everyone else's posts who went viral and you get this envy of, oh, I want that to happen to me. But what you're describing is actually very different.
Yeah. I mean, I have to look over that little bit of, man, why did mine hit? But when I started to focus on the few, I feel that it was fuller. It was an experience where those are clients now. Those are people that I work with. Those are ones that I go and I travel to the event that they're speaking at. Those are my people. But if I was going after the viral, like we had one of our people hit 5 million the other day, and I was like, 5 million impressions. I mean, I'm tattling on myself, but I've never done that.
Right.
But my first question was, well, what did you do with it? Because I want to like help them now. Like, gosh, that's way too many people to go talk to. And there's going to be people that came and engaged, and they could have been a client or a friend or a collaborator, a philanthropic that you could have brought to the table. And you're not going to hit them all. How can I help? And they're like, oh no, they're just impressions. It's like, oh. So even in the way of like those metrics, we talk about the vanity metrics. It's like sometimes they can be overwhelming, more so than the 172 that I brought up. 5 million views is a lot. What do you do with that? So when you get those, right? You've got, I think one time you've exceeded 300 people in these events that you've done. I mean, you've well done that. What's that process for you? How do you micro influence those people within a couple of months?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think for me, it's about the consistency and repetition of building a space where people want to come and consume what we're talking about, be a part of this conversation. Every one of those 300 people or however many it's been, I'm not trying to monetize each of those individuals. I'm trying to give something to them that then, if they want to come back and have a conversation about something that inspired them, connect with you, connect with Christopher, connect with Tim, connect with Wendy, all the folks that have been on here, back to the reason why we started this was there's a couple thousand of us, and yet you only know a handful, right?
Right.
I mean, how many top voices now? We know more because we're here, but I didn't know any others. Now I know 50 or 100 or whatever it is. But even then, within that group, and I think that's what's so interesting about this tension. I've chased the vanity metrics a couple times. I did a post about this, and I self-reported that, okay, I fell for it, right? I got focused on things that weren't authentic to me. And I've really pulled back and I've really gone a different direction because I think everyone's chasing that. So in this moment, what does curating a community mean to you? Obviously it's not about more. So what is
Sure.
it about? It's about closer, it's about more familiar. For you, what is it about?
I'm tailoring it down. When we go and do these events, even with yours, we can see over time. There's been many more than 300. I mean, you're thousands at this point, and then to build a community around the people that show up consistently, the people that really want to be there. So while one week you could have 300, the next week you have six, but those six have been there with you for 3 weeks. They are looking for something more, and not necessarily more business. They want to know more about whatever the topics are. So then I start to dive in. What do we talk about lately? I want to make sure that they continue to be fed that. And so right now we're on an AI kick,
Mm.
and for the first time I learned about compliance. Whew, that kept me up that night. So, but that's where I'm looking for. As I'm looking to build a community around people that want to invest into it. So we create challenges to make it fun, to keep them involved. I want to have people that want to have fun, and also uh, along the fun line, I want to have people that want to do something impactful, whether socially or economically, for the community that they actually live in, the local one. Because you and I are from opposite sides of the coast, and so we affect different people right next door to us. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those that right here for business, for collaboration, for economic impact, but then that social impact here, and then also in our local homes. Yeah.
It's a great reminder. And I think for many folks who are solopreneurs or in small companies, entrepreneurs, we are taught and encouraged to do more outreach, more connection, more names, more people in the pipeline, more people in the funnel. And I'm going back to our conversation with Mark Fuentes early on. about this idea that, understanding your clients and who you're working with is more important than
Mhm.
ever. It's not just about volume. And so this challenge of more, but in terms of more familiar, how do you see that playing out in the ways that, because AI and technology allows us to get so many names from so many places and so many people in the funnel, and we're all trying to move them from stage to stage, right? But you're telling us a different message. So how do we balance that? The more of bigger versus the more of more familiar.
Well, the more of bigger. So all of those lists of names, their LinkedIn, their profile, their title, their industry experience, that can go into AI. Use that to narrow down where are they similar, where can we be impactful, because I've taught my Gordon, my chat GPT, Gordon Patrick Teller, I've taught
Gordon.
him, yeah, all about what I want to do, the vision that I have to be able to create these spaces of comfort, of collaboration and community, and where can I fit them together, and that makes it a micro size. And then I say, okay, I can take these two and I'll have them to do a meeting together, and let's see if they jive in a conversation virtually, first in quiet, and then let's put them together on stage. And I think whatever though, and the purpose is to be able to have a conversation that teaches. So they have some kind of thought influence that can be beneficial for founders. I want to have that founder takeaway opportunity to where they go and they're like, I can execute this now. So when I go from the big group of the top voices and the emerging voices, I'm like, I want to see where you align so that we can take that and teach it to others, because the experience of these thought leaders is so impressive. I mean, I'm okay with not being the smartest person in the room. Um, but I also, I would like sometimes to have them to not be the smartest person in the room so that they grow. You know, I think that's a fun part of building community, so that no one feels like they're the top dog, that they always can get something out of it, because they're giving. Usually these people that you and I are associating with are pretty giving. Especially, gosh, we've got what Nick Larson and Denise Martha Bachman and Bobby Umar. They've got these hearts to be able to give back in some kind of way. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at now, is how I can be able to align them to be able to get fed too.
There's a couple things in there I want to jump into, but I want to self-report something, or maybe have an honest conversation, a provocative conversation, because I've struggled with this. I've been a part of a couple coaching communities. I won't name names. And I feel like everybody's got a community now. Join my coaching call, join my monthly thing, and we get on a Zoom or a Teams or something like this. And we sit around, and half the people are doing email, the other half are driving in their car. It's maybe one person talking. I've become very disenfranchised about this idea of people who are trying to bring in more folks. Here's your subscription. Join us once a month. I, as the host of the community, get all the benefit. You listen to me wax eloquently, maybe for an hour, and then we go off. It's a lot of inspiration and not a lot of value, quite honestly. And so I've been very skeptical of, which is why I was excited for this conversation. And so when I started this, somebody asked me, "Well, how do you want to monetize it?" And I said, "You know what? I I don't. It's not that maybe that's not an option, but I'm a part of so many things where I feel like I'm in this room only because somebody's trying to get something out of me. I want to give something back." And you mentioned that with Bobby and Nick and Denise and all these folks. So how do we help the solopreneur who does need to earn a living and make some money? How do we help them invest in a community that feels authentic, that actually gives, but they're not struggling to make ends meet, if maybe that's something where, they do need a revenue stream out of that? How do we do that without it feeling kind of icky?
It's a really good question. I value that question because that's a part of my goal set. We have a couple of our top voices that are seeking residency in the U.S. They want to become permanent citizens eventually, and there are certain things that you need to do to be able to execute that. They're a top voice, right? They're a thought leader. They have an industry expertise that's beyond most people in their field. And I'm like, all right, what can we do for them? And then so I'm looking within our community who can help them. And I think that's part of it. Like the revenue, it comes, I think, in time as you build that trust, as you build that visibility and credibility, as Denise always tells me. That's the first part. Then the next part, the revenue comes. So I'm not ashamed to take a dollar, right? But I'm more excited that I can be able to find them that opportunity. Maybe there's a job. We had one of our top voices that had a job posting out there. And so I'm paying attention to that kind of stuff in our community because I want them to feel like, hey, when you hang out with me, I want to have something to offer you. And maybe it's not always cash. Maybe it's not just a show, but I can say, hey, I was thinking of you because you trusted me with your story. You trusted our community with your story, and I was looking out for you, and you needed this job. Another one of our members was going into a partnership and needed a new lawyer. And so I was like, hey, I know a top voice that's a lawyer, and he's actually got a pretty good reputation, and I love his family. I'd like to offer that to you.
Yeah.
And obviously, you can see 172 people is way too many to like keep in your head at all times. But I do try to narrow it down so that the ROI is there, whether it's a job, whether it's revenue, whether it's even a therapist. All of that I think is very valuable when you join a community. It has to be somewhere where you're not the top dog.
I love that message, and I think it's a good reminder that this old adage that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room because you're not growing, because you're not being exposed to other brains and other minds. And the best thing for the human nervous system is another human. And that's a phrase I heard a long time ago. It's also the worst thing, by the way, depending on who you're standing next to. So be careful who you choose as company. We're coming up on the back third here, Nikki, and for folks on the line, we'd love to take a question or two if you have something that you want to ask Nikki. But I want to get into some tactics. So I'm a person out there. I don't have to be a top voice, but I'm somebody who has a message. I have a point of view. I have an expertise, and I want to start a community. How do you help that person? Where do they go first? What do they do first? And what are some of the big steps they should think about to launch into this world? Because I think we've talked about how do you pick a community to be a part of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick small, pick where you're not the smartest person, but how do I start one?
Well, first you need to realize you're not going to do it perfectly. We say progress over perfection. And think about the courage of what it's going to take. What do you need to do? Like, what do you want to do impactfully? One question that I've been asked is how much impact do you want to make? What kind of impact do you want to make? And what is enough impact? And so I think those are things before you start a community to have that in your mind. Are you doing the community so that you can be the bobblehead in there? Probably the wrong reason. I would walk away from that unless you're one. I don't know. I can't even think why. But next, I would start to bring together people that are like-minded, that would have the courage to join you, because you probably have seen that video of the guy. He's at a baseball field and he's dancing to the music or whatever and having a great time. And then second guy comes over and he's dancing with them, and everybody's like, what the heck is going on here? But the second guy took a risk with the first guy, right? And together they got a whole community. By the end of that meme or GIF or whatever, there's a whole crowd of people having a great time, right? And that's what I see. I see you need to find that first person that's going to come along with you to build the community, because you can't do it by yourself. It would be better to have those that support. That gives you some credibility, and bring someone that has the same heart as you, and then start to reach out and trust yourself. Trust that beginning vision that you had for the community, and invite just on that. I like to do invitations by video so that they see me. When I reach out to a top voice, I'm saying, hey, come be a part of this. Come join my community. And then I'm come play with me, because I think that they need to have some kind of personalization to that.
It's such a great message. And, I reflect on the start of this journey for me, and I did not have a specific community goal. What I knew I wanted to do was to open up a place where we could all get together and talk about real things and talk about the hard issues. I didn't necessarily know what it was going to turn into. And I think to your point about not worrying about being perfect, we were talking about this before we started the show. My first episode with Graham, and he was just awesome. And he's a LinkedIn legend. When I go back and watch that, the evolution of this group and the people that have shown up and your support and Annalie's support have just really been amazing. And so I think it's provide a place where people know you're going to be, where they understand and appreciate what you're offering, give from the heart. Those are all really, really important messages. So we've talked about a lot in this conversation, Nikki. We could keep going. I want to make sure we stick to our time frame. If you had to distill down, what are the three takeaways that you want people to leave with on this conversation of micro influence and macro impact?
I would say that you can quietly consider how you can be impactful on a small scale. And that's when you can get noisy after you've thought about it. And when you're thinking about how, and this is a good question, Michael, because I haven't really put it into three here lately. Um, Consider how it is that you want to be impactful, and then find those around you that you can build that with, and you have to be aligned in that action. And then take the moment. You don't have to have anybody from that point forward to tell you that you're good enough. If you've taken the step forward with that heart, with the mission to be able to serve, and you're developing as a leader as you take on each one of these people in the community, then I think the third part was to show up and be consistent. Because if anybody that I know, Michael, you are the most consistent. You have done such a great job. Like, you came up with this, you didn't know exactly what you're going to do with it. And I remember those first calls, and I was like, look, I see what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. Just let me step in there to give you some support.
You
And
did.
to watch you over time and your consistency, like, you figured out your message, you got with the people that you wanted to, and here you are, and you're being consistent. And I'm really impressed with it, Michael. You've done a really great job.
Well, I appreciate that. And, we're not done. We got a long way to go, and we're going to keep going, and who knows where we'll end up. And that's part of the fun, is the journey of this experience, and this idea of creating a place where people can come. There's an expectation of what they're going to get out of it. And, truly, and I mean this, my only goal in this experience was to give, and to give a place where we could come together. And so thank you for your support, for your team's support. It's really, really been a joy. Now let's talk about our bonus question. This is fun because we've learned a lot about you, and I think your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion to give. Uh, I think you're the perfect person to ask this question, because people always want recommendations of where to go. So the question that's been left for you is, it's pretty simple. What's the last book that you read that you would recommend, or podcast or newsletter? What's a resource that you think, beyond yourself and your team, people can go to, that you think would help light them on fire to move in the direction of their goals?
I really like the five love languages. I was just telling my children that we need to read it again, because as you're building a community, you're going to realize that there are different kinds of people out there in the world,
Mm.
and they all receive differently. Whether it's going to be a gift in the mail. I was talking with Nick the other day. He's getting ready to support his community by sending them this cute, fun gift. But at the same time, he's going to give them recognition, because some people, they need that, right? They're going to give recognition on stage, and others, they just want that time with him. So in that, was you're building a community around the people, you have to think about how they receive love, because you may receive it in one way, but to be an effective leader, you need to make sure that you're meeting everyone else where they receive love.
That's a great message, and something I want to reiterate to everyone as they embark on this journey is, it's okay to not be for everyone, right? You're not for everyone. Everyone's not for you. That's okay. That's the point. It's allowing the organic nature of choosing the places you want to be, because it fits with what you're trying to do. It fits with your energy, or how you like to show up. Whatever that community is, it's okay if somebody says to you, "Yeah, that's not my thing." That's okay. That's for them, and this is for you. And I think it's such a great reminder to not worry about being all things to all people. And if there's any takeaway from this conversation, is going deeper is much harder, but much more impactful than being more, right? We're all encouraged to be more, go bigger, get the vanity metrics. But the truth is, and this is true in my own life, the clients I've impacted, It's because I spent a lot of time with them in the meetings, in the rooms, building relationships, not because I did a quick hit workshop and ran off to the next client. It's because I spent time going deep. And what a great message to wrap up with. Nikki, where can people find you, and anything you want to leave our readers with as a outreach? Where can they learn more about you, your company, beyond LinkedIn?
Sure. LinkedIn, we do have a couple of pages. So you can find my LinkedIn profile, but we also have Market Me More, where we amplify speakers, give them the opportunity to build strategic partnerships. And our speakers, you can find company pages: Top Voices Unite, Emerging Voices Unite. And we have websites: marketmemore.com and topvoicesunite.com. So we'd love for you to reach out. Let us know what you're thinking, what kind of plans that you have, what that awareness is that you want to be able to create. And then we'll make sure that we connect you with the right people very strategically.
I love that. That's perfect. Thank you, Nikki, for your time. Thank you to the Top Voice Tuesday community and the Top Voice community overall for being a part of this journey with me, being a part of this show. Again, go to Michael J. Lopez 9 on YouTube to subscribe to all these episodes. We'll load this up here in a couple hours, and we'll see you next week, the beginning of summer, everyone. Have a wonderful start to the summer season. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you, Nikki, so much.
Thank you so much, Michael.